So we've actually just been looking at this slide, but this time I've highlighted the bit I now want to talk about in this lecture, which is my 10% on-page SEO. And I was talking about titles and meta descriptions, etc. So let's have a closer look and see how we're going to actually go ahead and do this. So we need to think of this as the essential on-page SEO and keep that 10% rule in mind. Okay, this is not the major part of your SEO efforts. And in fact, what would normally happen at this point of an SEO course is that we do a lot of keyword research and competition analysis. But really, we know straight away what our keyword is. In my example, and if we just think about the product review, the keyword is basically Fitbit Ionic smartwatch review. I mean, we could play around with it a bit, but at the end of the day, that is what my page is about. Now, the other thing when we think about competition is that if you cast your mind back to when we did the product selection several lectures ago now, I talked about picking products that are popular. All right, the best sellers. Now, this means that I am not going to be the only person reviewing the Fitbit Ionic smartwatch. To think otherwise would be very, very naive. So there's going to be plenty of other reviews out there. So for me to somehow get under the radar and be super competitive with this keyword is extremely unlikely. So in other words, I'm not going to worry about competition. And the reason for that, as you'll see later, is that the traffic is not going to really come from this part. It's going to come from those other two parts. You remember the 40% for creating great content. Okay, we've got this great content with a product review, but the real great content is going to come from our blogging efforts. And the other 40% was talking about link building and reaching out to other sites so that we can really get the word out about what we're actually doing with our project. So with that in mind, this 10% effort, what we want to do is include the keyword in a few areas, really just as part of a process so we can tick some boxes. We want it in the title, we want it in the meta description, we want it in the heading or the H1 tag, we want it in the page content, but we want it to read naturally. We don't want to overdo it. We don't want to do what they used to call keyword stuffing. The product review should just read naturally with our keyword or slight variations of appearing where appropriate. We want to put it in the alt tag of at least one of our images. And crucially, we want to include some internal links. Internal links are very important for SEO. They're great also for the user experience, but it helps Google in determining where all the various pages are of your site, how well your site is structured, and it can index it that more easily. So we'll be adding in one or two of those as well. And lastly, we want our keyword to form part of the URL. So let's dive over to my review and I'll show you exactly how to complete each of these steps.